everyone, and welcome to our fourth You're in Detention podcast. And this week, Kerry and I have put Eddie Grant in detention, and we couldn't be happy about that. And Eddie says it's his first detention, but I'm not sure I believe that. But anyway, we'll go with it. So welcome, Eddie.
Hi, how are you?
We are all right, thank you. Nice to see you.
Excellent.
So we're talking about all sorts today. We're not sure whether this might be two podcasts actually, because we've got such big topics to cover. But Kerry and we've got so many questions to ask you, Eddie, and obviously you might have questions you want to ask us. But all of the stuff that we discussed on You're in Detention is all topical to neurodivergent. But we also try and educate neurotypical people, leaders, parents, and that. They might have friends, they might have colleagues, they might have family members that are neurodivergent or just going through diagnosis. And it's kind of a place for people to feel seen and heard, and just feel like they're not broken. There's different minds, and we all kind of bring our own specialist skills into the world, and that's what it's all about. So we're so delighted to have you join us, Eddie. I know in a previous life we all used to actually work together in a big corporate organisation, and we are out of that now and doing our own various things. But Eddie, I know you and I have caught up ourselves, but it'd be really good for you to just give us a bit of a sense of your journey through neurodivergence and kind of how that's worked along for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, let me first say what you're doing is fantastic, and I think you're helping so many people in what is an absolutely vital subject. So thank you both for doing what you're doing. In terms of my journey. I know this is called in detention, and I did say to you I've never been in detention. I'm that old that my school used to have canes and detention and everything. No, I never got caned and I never got in detention. So that may be difficult for some people to believe, I was fortunate, and I suppose at school I was lucky that perhaps some teachers recognised that I was someone with lots of passion, lots of enthusiasm, and there's two ways for teachers to go. There's we're going to sort of push this person back in a box, or find things for them to do. I did spend a lot of time outside classrooms. I have to confess to that. And my wife Marina and I went to school, so we met in the same school from 11. So I'm sure she could probably tell you some slightly different stories than me. But certainly in primary school they made me head librarian. And when you're someone who can be hyper focused, now bear in mind I'm dyslexic, and when you're hyper focused, never really reading the books, but I can tell you every single book was put in the right order, in the right way, and you could find every single book. So that was great. And then in secondary school, they put me in charge of the sixth form, and the tuck shop was the most profitable tuck shop they'd ever had. So I think I was lucky at school that teachers recognised that I had lots of enthusiasm, lots of passion, and they probably got the best out of me. For me, in recent times, I think people around me may have thought that I was neurodiverse, but it wasn't something that I really recognised in myself. But my daughter, who had a diagnosis, inspired me to go and find out a little bit more about myself, and really, so my generation really didn't really embrace identify neurodiversity, and I think the young generation have really done that, and I think they've encouraged a lot of their parents to be curious, and I was one of those curious parents. And since my diagnosis about 2 years ago, I've spent some time thinking about myself and how to really lean into it and also make my diagnosis something that becomes more of I don't say a strength, but something that I can recognize what's good for me and what isn't good for me, what environment's good for me, and how to get the best out of myself. And I think one of the things I think is really important, I think this podcast is a great example of that, is if leaders actually start talking about their diagnosis. And I was on a podcast with Gain and Johnny Timpson, and he was a similar sort of situation as myself. And I have found that by talking, lots of people keep coming up to me, sending me messages, and asking me sort of how they could actually, get diagnosis themselves, or what's the best thing for them. And so I think that's been really, really positive, and I'm obviously pleased to share any insights that may be valuable.
It's an amazing journey you go on, isn't it? And I, I don't think anyone kind of prepares you for it. And then when you go through it, like you say, the younger generation are amazing at talking about things like this,
Mm.
um, and they've kind of made it feel all right for us to talk about things like this, because we would never before, we would have just been like, let's just ignore that and then we'll carry on. But they have brought it to the fore, and we are talking about it, which is amazing. But we are discovering all of this, as we're older, we're discovering all of these diagnoses, and we think, oh right, everything now makes loads of sense. But you do have to kind of go back and start to understand yourself again, which is obviously why we created Messy Minds.
I love hearing about the different journeys and everything. One thing I've seen a lot of recently, since especially since stepping into a pure operational role with Messy Minds, where it's only me, is that there's a lot more AI now, and that's increasingly taking over what I would say were neurotypical type tasks. So I attended a brilliant meeting a couple of weeks ago, but it was all around how we can really embrace AI to do these, what I would say are probably more mundane tasks. But how do you think organisations can start to rethink their recruitment or support for neurodivergence, and the talent there?
I think that's a great question, and I think if I can pick up on the first bit about AI,
Mm-hmm.
so AI is obviously fantastic. There's a lot of the simple tasks are being done, and a lot of people are transcribing meetings, so that's a task. And actually, I know everyone's really excited about AI, but actually we've had this progression over years around. When I started work, you used to stop off at a phone box with your pile of coins, and you'd ring the office and ask the office to read you all your messages, and they would tick off everyone they've read to you. Now we don't do that anymore. So there's always been technology, and there's always been roles that have evolved over time. So I think it's really important that we don't get overly excited about the impact of AI in a negative way, because there's always going to be hopefully positive impact as well. And I think that in terms of AI, it's really important when we think about neurodivergence. It's important that you build your AI and your recruitment process, if you're using AI, on great process that's inclusive by design. Because if you just build AI on poor process that discriminates against different groups, then you're just going to make that process faster. You're going to make that discrimination faster. So it's really important that we build it on positive process. So when a company's recruiting, it's really important that they recruit and think about, how am I going to get the best out of people? Not just we're only going to recruit neurodivergent people, but how do I get the best out of everyone that applies? And I think that's really important. And we're seeing companies, first of all, putting videos out that show the candidate the process they're going to go through, including what an interview looks like, what their office looks like. So you actually make the environment a lot easier if you're going through the process. So you dispel any issues. The other thing we're seeing is firms are allowing people to do work in their own time, to submit videos, to do other types of things than the traditional. You're going to come for an interview. I'm going to fire some questions at you, and then you're if you're neurodiverse, sometimes that really creates an issue. And I think this issue around dysregulation, I think, is really important. The issue that, in particular, neurodiverse people don't like surprises, generally speaking, and therefore, if you can remove the surprises, then you get the best out of the person. So I think companies need to really embrace a process that works best. So in my role for the Cabinet Office on disability access, I've been promoting a lot the Disability Confidence Scheme, which has 3 layers. And in essence, the leadership level is the one that's probably the most auditable in terms of how external people come in. And that's the one that probably gets the best out of people when they're going through the process. So for me, it's more about than just saying, I want to be inclusive. It's actually demonstrating that you've got really good process. And if you're going to use AI, build that new AI-driven process on something that is inclusive, rather than just bolting it on to what you already got.
Do you know what though, Eddie? I've had Kelly. Kelly. Who's Kelly? Kerry. Kerry has had a bit of beer mob on it this week, actually, about. I've seen a post on LinkedIn about graduate scheme, and I don't know why, but it just kind of got under my skin a little bit, because I think that the ways in which businesses are attracting young talent, if it is only through apprenticeships and graduate schemes, is not inclusive for neurodivergent people, because it is particularly I found school very, very difficult. And if I had been asked to run the tuck shop like you, Eddie, I'd have been absolutely knocking that out of the park. But to go through the GCSE topics and things, I was very much like zoned out, and I didn't. So it was actually, it's a bit worrying to see that companies are pushing through these graduate schemes and apprenticeship, which means you've either got to have A levels or a degree. The risk is that you kind of recruit out all of the creative thinkers, the problem solvers, the people that will be very, very calm in a crisis, people that will recognize patterns around the business and come up with solutions. It is a bit of a concern to me, and I'm not sure I've seen a lot of young talent programs around, and I think that's definitely something that businesses can do better at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm very keen on apprenticeship schemes, which obviously are more vocational rather than anything else. So long as an apprenticeship scheme gives you the opportunity to join if you've not got the top grades, that you've got the right skills, then I think that's important. And I always found that you can, it's all about the enthusiasm of the person, the passion of the person, that's important. That if you can find something that people really want to do, that's probably more important than anything else. There's a lot of people who end up in the role their parents really wanted them to do, and you find they then don't carry on doing that professional career because it's not the one that they really wanted to do. They were really pleasing people else, and I think that's this is quite common in neurodiverse people who sometimes don't actually they mask the things more, and actually we probably if we allow them to sort of get on and do what they want to do rather than push them, then I think that would make a big difference in their personal development.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the people pleasing is probably one of the most common things that we discover through coaching, and it kind of is almost a reaction to the probably the level of criticism that people have had growing up. So therefore, you want to just make people pleased with you, and don't want to let people down, and therefore you just end up doing something you're not that interested in, like you say. But if we've got an interest-based learning system, which we have, it feels really, really easy to do something that you love doing, but really, really difficult to do something that you have to do.
And universities are incredibly expensive now. So actually to go and do a course and then decide that you're not going to follow, you get any benefit out of it, seems to me not great. Apart from, there is an experience when you go to university which has value. I think people sometimes underestimate the experience value, and I think that shouldn't be. But if you're better off doing an apprenticeship, as you can get on the apprenticeship, or a T level or vocational skills, then I think for many people actually that's probably a better route to go down. And the one thing that I always think is brilliant when we do the graduations with the Personal Finance Society, or when my involvement with the University of Gloucestershire, where we've done the MSc program, the number of people that never went to university but have got their chartered, have got their MSc, have done it later on in life when they felt better able to do it rather than at school age, and to see the pride that they have and their family have because they knew they could do it, but the environment wasn't right for them. I think for me that blows everything away, to see people really proud of what they've achieved. And so I think the profession, like our profession, you can go down the chartered route. I know people who've done that. I always encourage people to become chartered managers or whatever else. It doesn't matter to me what people do, but it does matter to me that people invest in themselves when it's right for them to invest in themselves.
Yeah, just because you couldn't do it at school doesn't mean you can't do it. I've had far more qualifications since being out in the work environment than I ever had from leaving school or the education system. I know what you mean about uni. I'd have had a great time at uni, but I wouldn't have left with a degree. I can say that. I'd have been running a tuck shop. I could have started Amazon. I just missed a trick. um, Eddie, just well, I know that Kerry and I know you really well from a previous life, but for just as a bit of background for those that don't know you, for our listeners that don't know you so well, do you want to give us a little bit about what you did and what you do now, just to give a bit of context?
Sure. So so over the years, I've basically been in a technical sales type environment throughout most of my career. I sort of previous role was with Sir James Place, a director there, running the advice team, the technical support team, focus on vulnerability and accreditation and professional development. So it was quite a wide remit of different things. I've had a very long association with the professional bodies. I was a day one member of the Personal Finance Society. I was on the board for 6 years and president a while back, and I was asked to rejoin 2 years ago, which I did. So I'm actually now the longest serving non-exec director on the Personal Finance Society. I've done just over 8 years now, someone called me a veteran the other day, which is quite worrying actually. So I've been involved in that, and that's something that I'm particularly proud of, being involved in the professional standards with the professional body. I've recently joined the European Financial Planning Association as a board member, and then 3 months ago I became a government ambassador. So it's a cabinet office role, supporting disability and disability access, which is really exciting, meeting loads of new people. And that's been a really exciting role to really see how we can help disabled people access work. And from a personal point of view, so I've been married 36 years. My wife Marina is disabled, so I've been a carer for that period of time. So so that's a little bit background. It also explains why I have an interest in vulnerability and disability in particular. But for me, what I've done over the years has been designed to support people, help people, and a lot around professional development in particular.
What an amazing career there.
Yeah. And it is so interesting, Eddie. I think it's so, you're involved in so many different things. There was part of me listening to that thinking, I just don't know how you have time to do it all. But it's all to make a difference, which is brilliant. But you mentioned GAIN. So can you talk to me a bit more about your involvement with them, and what GAIN stands for, and how you're driving that change?
Sure. So GAIN is an organisation. GAIN stands for, and I've written it down here because I thought you might ask me that. So it's Group for Autism, Insurance, Investment, and Neurodiversity. And my involvement is, I've obviously recently done the podcast with them, and obviously in my disability access role, I'm seeking to work closely with them. But they're an organisation that have really grown massively since it was formed in 2021. And they've been putting initiatives in place for neurodiverse people in particular. And what they've been trying to do is raise awareness more than anything else, but also help identify roles that neurodiverse people would be suitable for. So, like a lot of these organizations, fantastic work, passionate people. And one of the things I've noticed over the sort of last 3 or 4 months is there are so many of these groups together. So I feel like I potentially could become a bit like the glue that brings these groups together. And one of the things I've been doing is connecting people up. It is making sure that I always think if you've got £1 to spend, it's much better to spend that £1 when you bring resources together from different organisations, rather than everyone taking 10p here and 20p here and 10p there and all going off doing their own thing. It's by bringing those people together. So I've really spent a lot of time connecting people, bringing them together, saying, "Oh, did you know that thing that you want to do, this organisation over there is doing it?" GAIN has amazing sponsorship in terms of organisations. They've grown rapidly. They're really influential, and a great example was, if you put your mind towards actually making a difference and you bring the right people together, then it's amazing what you can achieve.
I think we're really keen to get someone from GAIN on the podcast, and maybe Eddie, you can bring them on and connect us up.
Absolutely, I'm sure they'd love to do that.
Yeah, they can be in detention as well. Kerry did ask me what GAIN stood for, and obviously, as you can imagine, my short memory didn't allow me to answer the question. So I'm glad that you've answered it. I'm also glad you had to write it down, Eddie, because that makes me feel a lot better. Oh dear. And Eddie, we've had we've posted about the big topic of ADHD tax this week, and it's got to be one of the most, I don't know whether it's a little bit overlooked in terms of how much money ADHD costs you to have as an individual. Because if I look back over my life, there has been like there could be bills you've not opened because you're not very good at opening the post. You've got parking fines because you can't remember what time your parking expired. You've got all sorts of different things that you might have incurred. Have you heard other people talking about this as well? And is this something that is something as a financial services industry there should be like more help with kind of with discussing this and making this an actual thing, because it has cost me a lot of money in my lifetime to have ADHD, even though I didn't know I had it for 2 years. If I look back, you know, there's no doubt it's cost me an awful lot of money.
Yeah, I think there's greater awareness of the extra burden of disability and ADHD. So I think that there absolutely is there, and uh, I think um, I think what's important is if people recognise where they're strong and recognise where actually building a team around you is really beneficial.
Mm,
I've been lucky during my time to have uh, sort of built a group of people. My wife is the complete opposite of me in every way, and she brings out the best in me, and so she's my counterbalance, and I've tried to do that in work as well.
mm,
I think it's important. So the first thing is that recognition. Yeah, absolutely. If you're left to your own devices, then yes, you will miss things.
mm,
And there's obviously, if you miss a parking fine, I'm obsessed about parking fines. In fact, so as soon as they come in, I know they have to be paid. I don't leave them. I try not to. I try to open every envelope because I know it's easy for me to put an envelope on the side and not open it.
yeah.
And so I always know with a parking fine, I pay it straight away.
Hmm.
Um, and when the kids get a parking fine, I go and I pay the parking fine, and then I just send them a Monzo request, and I think what you need is you need to have that person that brings the uh, um, deals with the things that we're not good at
Mm,
to help. Now, absolutely, I do agree with you and the research that there is additional cost. There's additional cost for Marina being disabled. There's additional
mhm,
costs for her to live her life. So I think that there are always some additional costs. Some you can control, some you can't control.
mm,
Um, and is it any different from when we sit down as financial planners and we go through people's budgets, and over time we all accumulate direct debits that we forget about. So actually what you need, and this is a great advert for financial planning, what you need
mhm,
is you need that person that sits on your shoulder, that Jiminy Cricket type of person, that sits on your shoulder and actually guides you through, that person that nudges you.
mm,
I don't think that's exclusive to neurodivergent individuals. However, I think we just have certain challenges. So you may leave your parking fine. I'm absolutely obsessed about phones. So we both have ADHD. I have a slightly different approach to it, but then there'll be things that you're fantastic at that
mhm,
I'm really bad at. And so it's that recognition of that. But come back to the question you asked. I absolutely do agree. Um, there is an additional cost,
mm,
um, and what we need is help to ensure that burden doesn't become all encompassing, because that's the thing. Because when it becomes too big a problem, we can't get ourselves out of the problem, and it's finding a
mm,
way of stopping that. And it's quite easy to become obsessive, or we see addiction is quite a big issue with neurodiverse
mhm,
people. Um,
yeah.
uh, so it's how do you catch someone and stop it becoming a bigger issue?
Mm. Interestingly, when you were just talking about opening post there, Eddie, you said I tried to open all my mail. When you kind of say that, I completely got what you mean, because it is an effort to just do things that are really really straightforward things to do, this is admin. A letter comes through the door, put it on the side, put it on the side. Before you know it, you've got a pile like this. And like you say, you do have to be with people that can be the opposite to you. Because in our house, it is, I deal with the people, my husband deals with the admin. There's a clear divide because I'm much better with people and he's good at the admin, and we have that kind of, and it does help, like you say. But there's no doubt that there will be people that are neurodivergent that are putting off discussions about life insurance or critical illness, or if they haven't got round to it because it's not urgent, and that, you know, they've probably not even got an advisor. And there is a real, I think there is probably an advice gap. Hopefully these people are living with, again, neurotypicals that would go, okay, well, I've already got that under control. But that's not necessarily the case, because it does become something that it kind of grows arms and legs in your mind, and before you know it, you've put it off again, you put it off again, and then you get yourself into quite a serious situation if you have these life events that then catch you unaware.
Yeah, and look, I'm looking at my camera, and behind my camera is a doom pile of paper. So I'm not pretending that I'm not pretending that I'm, you know, perfect. You know, so as I said, you know, what you're brilliant at, I may be rubbish at, and vice versa. I think that the thing is find the person that is that person that helps you and is the right balance. And it's funny, since my diagnosis, my daughter's diagnosis, we get on much better today because we actually understand each other. You know, and it's, you know, my wife's always been brilliant. She's always understood me. She didn't need me to come home and tell her what my diagnosis said. But I think it's finding that counterbalance, whether that be at home, at work, in school. It's getting the right people around you that bring the best out of you. I think it's really important.
Anyway, let's talk to you about your tea sommelier, because this is of great interest. Kerry and I, we were looking with interest at your
I can see you're drinking tea at the moment, aren't you?
What is it? What is in there? Wow, okay.
Nothing.
It's a bit different to my
that's right.
cup.
Yeah. So I had a bit of time on my hands, and I wanted to do something different, and I basically became trained to be a tea sommelier for fun. So what I did, Marina always sort of says, you know, because you know, I'll hyper focus on something, and for me that was the thing. But for me, it was also a massive opportunity to learn something different. So I'm probably the only chartered financial planner and tea sommelier in the UK. Who knows? So that's an achievement, maybe. But also tea. I'm a historian in terms of my degree, and so tea is very historic. It's been around for many years. Originally as for medicinal purposes, and then is now the most popular drink in the world after water. And there are thousands of teas. So 90% of people in the UK will take a tea bag and they will 30 seconds dump it in a mug and with boiling water and throw some milk in, and that's tea. And I am not decrying that. That is tea, and that is fantastic. That tea is the equivalent of taking 5 bottles of wine from 5 different vineyards, mixing it in a bucket, and then drinking it, because that's a blend of tea. So what I drink generally often, and I do drink a Yorkshire tea with milk, so I absolutely do. But what I generally drink are single estate teas. So basically, tea that has been grown in a single place and processed, and then drink that alone. So it's like a bottle of wine coming from one place. And to be honest, tea and wine are exactly the same. They get their flavors from the environment, what's known as the terroir, and actually that environment, you taste and smell the same sort of things, whether it be wine or tea. The only difference between a tea tasting and a wine tasting is that you'll remember the tea tasting, but you won't remember the wine tasting after five glasses that you're supposed to spit out. But why did I do it? I think there's a really big mindfulness bit to tea, which is, so when I have a tea, first of all, I'll take 5-10 minutes out of my day to make the tea, and I can choose the teas. I've got about 50 different teas at home that I can choose from, whatever mood I'm in. I can choose how I brew my tea. So this is a tiny little teapot that I often use, and it's like an espresso tea, very strong tea. But I so you can smell the tea. If the dry leaves, you can smell them, you can hear them, you crunch them to see how fresh they are. You can look at them. And basically you then add the water, and I can give you exactly the same leaves. You can have a totally different experience because you may use a different temperature, you may brew it longer. There's various things that you could do differently to me, so you can really bespoke it. So that experiment, that curiosity is really exciting. So it says on the packet, brew it for this long with this temperature. And obviously, having ADHD, I'm curious. And so therefore I want to break the rules. And so I thought, well, I'll try it differently. And actually you can brew tea several times. So fresh leaves, you can brew it several times, so 4 or 5 times. And each time you brew it, it gives you a slightly different flavor, a slightly different taste, and you can brew it longer and shorter. So actually there's excitement for me in what the tea will do if I treat it a different way, and actually all of that just is something I'm really interested in, and I've spent a lot of time trying to encourage people to try something different. In the new year we had a tea tasting party. And everyone humoured me for 3 minutes and then went back to drinking Yorkshire tea, which is fine. But actually, I've started to do sort of tea talk sessions and various other things just to really to do something different. And it's great for financial planners in particular, if they're bringing clients together. A lot of young people in particular don't want to drink alcohol. So they're actually doing a tea session appeals to a different group of clients, and I can do that. I can also talk obviously about financial planning and tax and stuff like that. So I've got this sort of session which is tax, tea, and trusts, which makes it slightly more exciting, slightly more different. But it's the whole. For me, it's really the mindfulness and the very last thing, because I know, Joe, you want to jump in, but the the last thing is watching the leaves open. It's called the agony of the leaves. When you put boiling water on leaves that have been dried for a long period of time, or tea that's been stored for 20 years. So there's fermented tea. It gets stored for 20 years, and you come along and you add your hot water, and you watch the agony of the leaves as the leaves open up and unfold and give you all that flavour. For me, it's really exciting. I should think most people think, "Oh, he's really gone off his trolley," but for me, it's really exciting, and you just get an amazing experience. Tea comes from 70 countries around the world, including the UK. Up in Scotland or down in Cornwall or over in Wales, we grow tea, and there are some really exciting tea gardens. And the very final point is there are 9 ladies in Scotland who make the most expensive tea that Fulton and Mason sell. It's called 9 Ladies Tea. And obviously in Scotland they can't produce much of it, so it's really expensive because it's such a small amount of tea, but it's apparently really, really great tea. And it just shows how innovative people are around the world. I'll
Mm.
stop.
No, I was fascinated then.
Yeah.
It reminded me actually, I was behind one of my colleagues when I when I used to work in my corporate role, and we were in Harrods, and he was queuing up to buy some tea in Harrods, and I think he misjudged what it was going to cost because he then got to the till and they was like, "Oh, well, that's £75 or something like that," and he was then shamed into actually buying it. And he's told that story quite a few times. But yeah, I completely appreciate the price of tea since witnessing that.
It can be quite expensive. I think 9 litres is about £250
Wow,
for 100 grams.
my
So
gosh.
that's
I
expensive.
am surprised, Eddie, that you didn't call your group teetotal. That sounds really good. I mean, I have to say if I had to go and make a cup of tea and I had that many choices of tea, I would feel like I was in the nail salon again where I have to choose a colour and there's so many colours that I'll just look at them for hours and then just choose the same one. And I feel like we need to up our tea game, Kerry.
Yeah. But well, I've loved listening to you just talking about that, Eddie. And I think for me, something you mentioned a couple of times was mindfulness. But I think it's making that time to have that experience, even if it's only a few minutes. But just having, that's your focus for that time.
Yeah, and people wouldn't think twice of getting a bottle of wine. Sometimes quite an
No.
expensive bottle of wine. I don't drink a huge amount, and for me, my equivalent is tea and different types of tea, and yeah, and actually taking that 10 minutes in the day.
Yeah.
I walk the dog, I get my tea. They're the sort of patterns that I think are really helpful to have to just give yourself some space.
Do you know they are actually? And I usually walk the dog and do all my jobs in the morning, and then I can have a cup of tea. Like I have to reward myself to do all the things that if I leave them till the afternoon, it's very unlikely that I'll be then doing them. So it does help having that little bit of something to look forward to, and you think, right, just get this done, then you can do that. You know,
So we have a tea kettle. So every single morning we have the same tea brewed to the same temperature at the same time, and the basket goes down and comes back up again and goes down, and it's sort of 3 minutes, and it's exactly the same experience every single morning. So nothing changes. It's very very predictable.
I like that. But it is interesting though because what everyone relaxes in a different way, and particularly I notice it with having ADHD. When people go, "Do you want to go to the spa?" I find that really quite. I don't find that relaxing at all. In fact, I find it more stressful than anything else because all I'm thinking about is, right, I need to relax. I need to relax. How are you going to relax? What's this? What? Why don't you put some music on? Why is it so quiet in here? Like all of that kind of environment where it should be relaxing, I don't find it relaxing. And what you've just described there about having that interest and having something that relaxes you doesn't necessarily mean it's doing nothing. So I find that quite hard.
Yeah, and look, and everyone does different things. I'm surrounded by people who love running, and
Yeah, me too.
that's and actually people. So we have a friend of ours who every day does 10 or so miles. Um, that's what they really enjoy, and I think it's really important to have something like that, have that
Mm.
escape, have that break, whatever it is. And we got a dog about 15 months ago, um, from having a break with dog, and it makes such a difference, giving you something you can turn your attention to. Doesn't matter
Mm.
what's going on at work or around you, you can turn your attention to something different. And I think that's really 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 important, for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kerry and I will spend a lot of time over the summer dog walking, and I think having dog around is actually really helpful. But the amount that I talk to the dog is, I'm not sure the dog she doesn't listen to me at all. But I do like, I don't know, it makes me better because I've got the dog around.
What dog have
Like
you got?
a spaniel.
Spaniel.
A non-working spaniel, shall I say? Because my old boss used to call her a cushion because she spent all day lying on the sofa. I'm disappointed now, Eddie, that you haven't brought your dog on the podcast.
Oh, he's just down. It's a minute. We got there's a picture of him up there. So that's Alfie, and that was the very first tea that I picked down in Cornwall. So he is there, but he's actually on the floor. He's a little miniature schnauzer. So
Lovely.
Lovely. What's his name?
Alfie.
Alfie. You did say that. There we go. Another description of ADHD in the making. I've completely forgotten his name immediately, even though you've just told me. Brilliant. Oh no, we've absolutely loved having you on You're in Detention, Eddie. It's been brilliant. Oh, we would love you to come back and talk to us some more. And also maybe we'll get Gain, see if they would like to come on and talk to us. Sounds like they're doing brilliant work, and we're always looking for like-minded organisations like us to talk to and talk about. We've got plenty of people lined up to come on the podcast. That some are doing very similar work to us, some are doing completely different. But I think there's so much need for people to be talking about this subject, and there is still plenty of stigma attached to the workplace about it, unfortunately. And this is why people like you and I and Kerry would talk about it all the time, and it makes people feel like it's okay to have a different mind and a different operating system, because at the end of the day we're very, very good, and we've got a real big group of skills that other people don't necessarily have, and if all of us working together we can really kind of do some brilliant things, can't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
But
And Bank of Ireland have produced a fantastic guide for companies around a neuro-inclusive working environment. So maybe you could put that in the. I'll send you a link, and you can put it in the show notes or something like that. But that's a really, if you're an employer and you're looking for ideas, I think that's a really good document to have a look at. Also, that the disability confidence standards as well that the government have got are really useful, just to get you thinking. And there's another document which I've been sharing, which is from Money Advice Trust, which is about reasonable adjustments. Because what I've always found over the years is that companies do want to do the right thing, but they don't know what the right thing to do is. And so this document's really good because it just gives you some ideas of what is a reasonable adjustment. It doesn't say you must do this or you must do that, but it looks at many industries and says, well, over there they're doing this, and you may want to think about that. So I'll send you those three links, and if you're able, it'd be great to put it in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll definitely link them in the podcast. So thank you. Sounds like some brilliant documents there. And as always, if you're watching this and you're struggling and you want to make sense of yourself and work out who you are, because I think that's got to be the biggest journey that I went through, and it certainly sounds like same with you, Eddie, trying to understand yourself is a massively powerful tool, more than anything else that I've ever done throughout my career and life. And it certainly makes a difference as to what you go on and do in the future. So if you want to get in touch, obviously our website is in the description. And if you've liked this video, if you've really liked listening to Eddie, and I have, especially about the tea, give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. And we will really look forward to having Eddie back in detention. So that will be, you've been in detention twice then, Eddie.
That's
so
right.
We feel like we've ruined your unblemished record. But yes, so thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Brilliant. Thank you